Hello and welcome to another episode of 34 Tauri. Today I will be giving an introduction on how radio technology was invented, how the technology works, and the various uses of the technology today. The Scottish physicist James Clerk Maxwell first theorized the existence of radio waves during the 1860s. This theory was later proved by the German physicist Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, who demonstrated their existence in 1886. Using an induction coil, Hertz produced voltages high enough to project electrical current into the air from a spark gap. After setting up another spark gap circuit in the vicinity, he noted that when sparks were generated by the circuit with the induction coil, they simultaneously appeared across the spark gap of the second circuit. In short, as the electrical current jumped across the spark gap of the first circuit, it produced electrical waves that could be received by the wires of the second circuit. Hertz's experiment showed that the signals possessed the properties of electromagnetic waves. There is more to his experiments than this, but he had effectively demonstrated that the radio waves theorized by Maxwell existed. However, proving the existence of radio waves is not the same as turning that concept and technology into a method of communication. For that, the world would have to wait a further 9 years for the Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi. The young Guglielmo was fascinated in Hertz's discovery of invisible waves and began experimenting with electromagnetic wave generating equipment at his family's estate in Bologna, Italy. By 1895, he was able to send and receive signals to locations more than a mile away, and 4 years later he managed to send the first wireless signal across the English Channel. As Hertz's experiment shows, when electrical energy is released into space from an aerial, it is converted into radio energy and moves as a wave. When the radio wave encounters another aerial, some of the wave's energy is converted back into electrical energy in the receiver. So far, this information only gives us the ability to generate a signal of varying intensity and transmit it through space. Fortunately, radio waves also have different lengths and frequencies, which enables us to communicate using them. The frequency of a radio wave is measured in Hertz and represents the number of waves that arrive at a point every second, while wavelength, on the other hand, is the distance between one amplitude peak in a wave and the following one. So for simplicity, radio waves are often grouped into wavebands of similar frequencies. However, as there are so many programs being broadcast simultaneously, radio receivers need a device called a tuner to filter out the radio program the user wants from all the others. As mentioned in the early days of radio communication, transmitters used induction coils to produce high voltage electric sparks. These sparks generated radio waves across a broad band of wavelengths that could be received over a large area. At the time, very few people used radios, so the use of spark coils as transmitters was acceptable. But today their use is illegal as they interfere with other radio communications being made in the vicinity, so a more sophisticated means of generating radio waves and communicating with them is required. Today, transmitters take information and encode it into a sine wave called a carrier by the process of modulation. The carrier is then sent to an aerial and then broadcast as radio waves. There are 4 different methods for encoding information into a sine wave. These are pulse modulation, amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, and digital modulation. Pulse modulation encodes information into a sine wave by turning the transmission on and off at regular intervals, a lot like Morse code. It sees some use in the USA in allowing radio-controlled clocks to keep track of time, but the limited amount of information that is possible to send by this method means it is not commonly used. With amplitude modulation, information is sent by altering the signal amplification, i.e. the peak-to-peak voltage of individual waves in the carrier. As the name suggests, AM radios use amplitude modulation to encode information, as does the visual component of TV signals. Frequency modulation manages to encode information by adding slight changes into the frequency of the carrier wave. Many wireless technologies use this method, including the sound element of TV broadcasts. Digital modulation, on the other hand, takes information and measures and samples it before converting it into a binary number sequence. It then breaks that sequence down into smaller pieces and broadcasts those pieces multiple times. Transmitting the same piece multiple times ensures the highest chance that the information will be received. The receiver at the other end then reassembles the information sent from the pieces. Digital radio signals are transmitted on a band of frequencies 1,500 times wider than other radio modulation techniques use. This broad bandwidth allows a single digital signal to carry multiple information sources simultaneously by blending them together through multiplexing. The information completes its journey when it reaches another antennae. An antennae is basically just a length of wire that produces a small alternating current when exposed to radio waves. However, different designs of antenna exist to pick up different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Given that the received signal may be from somewhere far away and hence have become quite weak at this range, radios use frequency amplifiers to increase the amplitude of all of the frequencies the antenna receives. However, this gets us only one step closer to finding the signal we are after. To do this, we need a tuner. Tuners normally consist of a circuit containing a capacitor and an inductor, often a coil. Due to the capacitor, this circuit resonates at a particular frequency called a resonant frequency. Circuits like this block any frequencies outside their resonant frequency. Basic radios adjust their resonant frequency by adjusting the number of turns in the coil, while more advanced radios use a variable capacitor. With our desired carrier amplified and isolated, we now need to recover the information encoded in it. To do this, we use a circuit called a detector to demodulate the carrier wave. For AM signals, all we need is a diode that fixes the alternating current signal into a direct current signal. While for FM radios, we use a variety of detector circuits to convert the varying frequencies in the carrier into a varying amplitude that can be understood. Unfortunately, the signals that come out of the detector are not always strong enough to be clearly heard. To rectify this, an audio amplifier circuit is used. In this circuit, the more transistors the signal is sent through, the more the signal is amplified. After this, it is ready to be sent to the speakers. While radio broadcasting has lost its importance in the media landscape of today, the technology behind it is still essential to most modern communication technologies. Radio communication is used in mobile phones, television broadcasts, satellite communication, and radar. It is even used in wireless internet connections, and is probably how you are watching this very video. Today there are around 44,000 radio stations worldwide, and together radios and mobile phones are some of the most accessible forms of technology, being within the reach of 70% of the world's population. Anyway, that's all for this video. Please feel free to leave a like, a comment, and or subscribe and share. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.